I say love asks two questions. How can I be of service? What is needed in this moment? And those two questions, after you take a deep breath and make sure you're breathing and you're grounded, you'll find a way forward coming from love. Because the beauty is with this approach, when you're coming from an intention of love, not fixing, there are no mistakes. There's only learning to move forward. Because if it doesn't work, okay, we'll try something else.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Gilda Evans, bringing you the Autism Resource Podcast. This podcast and the ARP website are your one-stop knowledge and resource base for autism and much more. I'm happy to have Heidi Rome join me as my guest today. Heidi is a speaker, author, coach, facilitator, advocate, mentor, perspective reframer, solace bringer, and a mother of two sons, one with severe autism. She is the author of You Just Have to Love Me and creator of the When Skillsets. And she understands how to overcome overwhelm through loving kindness towards oneself and others. As founder of Moms Spectrum Oasis, Heidi is spreading the word that it's time to change the narrative around autism if we are to live the ideals of true inclusion and belonging. Welcome, Heidi, and thank you so much for joining me today to talk about the work that you do.
Thank you so much, Gilda. A pleasure to be here with you.
Just to get started, tell me a little bit about what brought you to this, let's call it your autism journey.
Yes, my younger son, Ethan, who is now 19, has what is now named severe autism, level 3 autism, meaning he is severely impacted. He has high need autism, the defining feature of which is that he does not really speak. He does not have much spoken language, or the language he does have is considered unreliable or insufficient to really convey his innermost thoughts and feelings. And as is often the case with autism, his nervous system is often severely dysregulated. So the communication and the regulation components of autism are very much seen in Ethan. So that is what has put me on this up and down journey that has taught me so much.
What was your mindset like when your son was first diagnosed? How old was he when he was first diagnosed?
He was not even 2 when he was diagnosed, and the the shock, the trauma of diagnosis, actually, as moms who have experienced that know, I still feel, because the pediatric neurologist who actually gave us the diagnosis, when we had first consulted with her, said, I don't like to use the word autism to label babies, toddlers. And then in conversation, when we said, what's going on with him, she used the word, and that was a shock. That I can say that was one of those days that you don't forget.
Starting with the doctor and then continuing on that journey, talk to me a little bit about your role. Did others try and tell you what your role should be, what was possible, what wasn't possible? What did that look like?
From the beginning, the experts spoke up to tell me what was and was not possible for Ethan, what our expectations of him should be, to be realistic, in their words. And it was very upsetting, very limiting, very much a tragic narrative. What really needed to happen was behavior modification, that he does not have his own thoughts and feelings. The reason that he's not really speaking is not so much the inability to speak as he has nothing to say. For example, I brought him in to New York at the time, this world-renowned autism specialist for a full evaluation. And at the age of 5 years old, they told me at the end of a week of testing that he had the mental capacity of a 5-month-old infant. And I can tell you, Gilda, that was the worst news I had or have ever received in my life, including death news, because that put to death my hope for Ethan and what was possible for him, and totally influenced our relationship with him, how we spoke with him, what we expected of him, decisions we made on his behalf through that lens of he doesn't understand and he doesn't care.
I'm sure that since then, those experts, and I'll put that in quotes, have been proven wrong. But what impact did those beliefs have on you and Ethan at that time?
Tremendous impact, overwhelming global
Like it was
impact.
like a death. How did that
So
fit into all different aspects of life?
100%. And what happened, so the way I describe it now when I speak, as someone who always thought loving and fixing are the same thing, I went into hyper fixing mode. I'm going to fix my broken kid. That was my job. If I'm going to be a good mother, and I use that language specifically because the behavior focused school did use that kind of language. Can you be the parent your child needs you to be in the face of these behaviors, and making it all about make him look normal? If you can't change who he is, at least make him look no different from the rest of the population. Don't be mortally embarrassed if he acts up in public. Make sure he doesn't. Make sure that he looks like all the other kids, or at least get him to be quiet. And if he can't participate like everyone else, it moved me, that diagnosis and that guidance and that report moved me into hyperfixing in terms of the school we chose to send him to, in terms of the therapies I dragged him to, how I spoke to him, or should I say about him as if he weren't there for many years, thinking he doesn't know or care anyway. When you are dehumanizing another person, which is ultimately what it is, and it's really hard to admit that, in essence, that's what I was doing, was making him less than, treating him as if his humanity were somehow of a different level from my own. And for so many years, I thought that was my job if I were to be a loving mother, was to try to fix my broken kid and bring him to the millions of therapies and interventions and pharmaceuticals and name it. We tried it to the point of our head spinning. And ultimately, Ethan still had autism. And I was failing at fixing him. And that was the path so many of us moms are still on, until, in my case, I reached a point with Ethan where there was this realization, this epiphany that this painful approach was not the one that was for his good or my own.
So tell me then, let's expand upon that. Tell me what happened to change your beliefs, to change your behavior, to prove those experts wrong, to bring you to the idea, as you say in your book, love, don't fix.
Exactly. Yes. What brought me there with Ethan was we had reached a point in the original behavior focused school where all they could do in the face of Ethan's increasing distress was to give us more ideas on how to restrain him. And that was getting ugly. I won't go into the gory details, but there was the realization when someone had made the suggestion that we use a cattle prod on Ethan, that I realized, oh no, out of here. I don't know. I'm just going to jump and the net will appear, but we must jump. So we did. And I am very grateful that we found a wonderful school that had a diametrically opposite approach, DIR floor time model, developmental individual relationship. And that is rooted in the concept of not focusing on the behavior as a problem, but the behavior as a symptom of underlying issues, the realization that behavior is communication and that this child is not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. Whole different point of view, whole different perspective. How can we support his nervous system to calm him, allow him to be who he is? So the other thing that the school offered was alternative communication techniques for people who cannot use their mouths to speak. The behavior school said if he wants to speak enough, he will. It's about motivation. And this school said, no. He has aphasia. His brain and his body are not wired the way most people are wired to be able to just access that part of communication and allow it to be expressed verbally as typically wired people are. He is neurodiverse. He is different in this way. They had that perspective, so they offered these techniques. And through one of the techniques they offered was facilitated communication, spelling to communicate, alternative devices, all kinds of alternatives for people whose nervous systems could communicate with support through those different means. And it was through one of these typing approaches that this child, who I was told had the mental capacity of a 5-month-old infant, began spelling out his thoughts and feelings that blew me away and revealed a profound intellect and spiritual connection. I'll give you a quick example. There are many, but his very first week, the teacher called to tell me that she had said to him, Ethan, you've been here at the new school a week. How do you feel? She thought I'm going to keep it simple, no more trauma of demanding answers, just like, what do you want to say? And she thought this is easy. He'll say, like it, loud, or whatever word he'd pick to use. The 3 words that Ethan had chosen to respond to her, and that's why she was calling me, basking in joy.
Oh my goodness. How wonderful.
And talk about cognitive dissonance, though. I was delighted and suspicious. What is happening here? He has the mental capacity of a 5-month-old. We talk about him like he's not in the room. What do you mean? He typed basking in joy because he was now in an environment that presumed competence and assumed he understood.
Mhm.
And that was the beginning of a path of Ethan revealing more and more of himself and the realization that fixing him was barking up the wrong tree. And ultimately, he even typed to me in the midst of all, because I was still dragging him to a million therapies every day after school, nonstop. And he typed one day with the teacher when I was telling her a bit about his crazy schedule, because I was still thinking, fix him, fix him. He typed, I'm tired. And I felt the breath leave my body.
Mhm.
I said, oh, well, Ethan, buddy, you need this. This is to help you feel better, help you do better. And I thought, wow, he's exhausted. Who am I doing this for? Him or me? And I realized it was all about my own thought process. Be a good mother, be a good mother. Okay, kid, let me drag you. Not realizing I had been sending Ethan the message unknowingly, but I was sending him a message that you are broken and mom is so unhappy that she'll drag you and exhaust herself to do all this. And she's so sad that you are how you are. And this hit me in the face. I said, oh no. And I stopped doing that crazy fixing thing. And then fast forward though, with even my, not the fixing, calming down and Ethan able now to communicate. Even this though, he still had autism. His body was still dysregulated. And now he was entering puberty. He was 11. And he had been at this wonderful new place that was honoring his humanity and teaching us to do that for 2 years. But entering puberty is not fun for any kid, much less someone whose nervous system is already dysregulated.
Oh, yes. Everything starts to change. Everything's wiring, all the hormones are flowing, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And it's hard to get grounded. And Ethan was becoming more and more distressed. He was putting his head through the walls of the house. We had to take him for an emergency MRI to make sure he had not detached his retinas, as is a thing that happens often with severe autism in the dysregulation. They're harming themselves, they're harming the people around them. He's overturning furniture. He's a big, strong guy, and it was dangerous. And we made the very difficult decision to go to court and get him placement at a residential school out of state. There was no such placement in my state for kids with autism, where they had the staff for 24/7 to support him and educate him and care for him as he needed. And we made that choice for him to go there. I knew, though, I would be losing this ability to type with him because for another conversation, it is not acknowledged very often by the mainstream folks as a legitimate form of communication. They can't believe it. People can't believe they're intellectually impaired because they look it. They look intellectually impaired. So when you judge a book by its cover, you say that can't be them communicating. Mom, you're doing it. Teacher, you're doing it. You don't mean to do it, but you're being deceived or you're really typing what you want him to be saying. So the new school was not going to permit this or offer it. And I was going in extra sessions to work with Ethan on this. And we, by the way, would ask him questions that the teacher would have no way of knowing the answer to. And he would answer private information, stuff that she'd have no idea. And it was always accurate. But I went in to work with him before he would be going. And I said to him, Ethan, what are your thoughts about God? God is in my heart and he will always protect me. And what ensued after that was an amazing conversation. It was at the heart of the book I wrote, as you had mentioned, You Just Have to Love Me. An incredible conversation about Ethan's choice to come here in this life with challenges and why. And ultimately, when I said to him, what can we do to help you? Because I still wanted to help fix him, make life better for him. And he typed to me, you just have to love me. And that is your job. The rest is my job to do. So any piece of me that still thought my job was to fix him, it's like, no, no. My job is to love him. And now let me figure that part out because, as we know as moms, love is not only the warm and fuzzy feeling, love is coming, acting when we're not necessarily feeling warm and fuzzy. When I speak and I educate people around this, I say love asks two questions. How can I be of service? What is needed in this moment? And those two questions, after you take a deep breath and make sure you're breathing and you're grounded, you'll find a way forward coming from love. Because the beauty is with this approach, when you're coming from an intention of love, not fixing, there are no mistakes. There's only learning to move forward. Because if it doesn't work, okay, we'll try something else. So that has been the path with Ethan, and that continues to this moment because love is ever changing and evolving as the need shifts. How can I meet that need moving forward? And that brings me to the present of that continues to be the challenge of my journey with Ethan.
Well, Ethan sounds like a remarkable and incredibly wise soul. And
Yes.
you made a lot of changes, a lot of decisions that were very impactful, obviously. What impact did those things have ultimately now that you are further along in that journey, and now that you can look back on that, all those changes and all those things you did, what impact did they have on his quality of life and your quality of life? And what becomes possible now that wasn't possible before?
Oh, Gilda, thank you for the question because everything becomes possible when we let go, when we stay in the lane of our own life, especially when dealing with a special needs child who is no longer a child, the realization that every human being is here for their own expansion, their own learning, their own growth, their own purpose. And when we have a special needs kid, we are so tempted. I'm speaking for myself now. I was so tempted to live Ethan's life for him, make decisions for him based on what I thought he needed, not what he expressed he wanted or needed. I know better. The assumption I know better. And the fact is, we're you can't ever be the hero in someone else's life. You can only be their guide or the villain, because I was both. I didn't want to be the villain. I realize now I was, in some cases, unwittingly. But that was because I was not staying in my lane and remembering, well, I didn't know yet. Ethan had not yet articulated, your job is to love. The rest is my job to do. Every human being, it's their job. Their life is their job. And as mom, we can be the guide to that. So what opens up to that is I have to ask myself, what is my role? And what needs to be clearly that of Ethan? And give him, as his mom, as his guide, I still have the responsibility to guide, nurture, educate, provide medical care, all the things that mom does so that the chick can fly, right? Everything I do is ultimately for him to live his own life and give him the opportunity to break out of the cocoon and stretch his wings. And in the case of Ethan, recognizing he's not typical, he needs a different environment to provide the support he needs. Give him that environment so that he is supported to live his own life, make his own choices about what he wants to be and do, like any other young person, exploring the options in front of them. That's my role now as guide, so that he is empowered to be the hero of his own life. And when that is the perspective, I believe, that is loving him, not trying to fix or change him for who and what he is or is not.
That's loving him and that's loving yourself too, right?
Exactly.
And that's a win. That's a win as far as I'm.
Exactly. The best thing I can do for Ethan is stay strong and joyful on my own path. Because these guys, they read our minds. All the kids do, but especially neurodiverse people, they're so super sensitive. He knows when I'm not truthful. He knows when I'm putting the happy face on grief. He knows all that. He feels it. That does not honor him. I am not in service to him when I do not speak truth. I am honoring his whole humanity and his own beingness when I speak truth to my son and I trust him with my truth and I say, I'm feeling sad, angry, whatever I'm feeling. And I know it'll be all right, but right now, this is what I'm feeling. I don't know what to do for you right now. That resonates with truth, and that strengthens my relationship with Ethan instead of damaging it by not honoring him with truth.
Wonderful words and well said, Heidi. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story with us today.
Oh, thank you, Gilda. A pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Someone asked me, why do you do what you do? And the words just came out of me. I love my son and I want the world to be kind to him.
Well said, as we all want for our children, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's a universal. It is the human mom condition. What do we all want for our kids?
You take good care. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Gilda. A pleasure to be here.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast. You can find it on Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other popular platforms. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would like more information on this topic or anything else we've covered on the Autism Resource Podcast, visit us online at autismresourceproject.org/podcast. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover in the future, contact us through the website or comment on any of our social media channels. And be sure to check out our growing website often, since we are continually adding useful information and resources. I want to thank our listeners for spending part of their day with us. This is the Autism Resource Podcast, and I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.